Well, here we go. Yet another episode. Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tales from the Forlorn Dopes. I am one of your hosts, Cybersmily.
I am the other host, Wisdom. Greetings, programs. Today we have the second installment of our review of Land of the Free, and we'll be getting to that in a minute after we bring everybody up to date on what's going on with the game and the genre itself.
Yes. Oh, I heard an interesting fact about some Twitch that there's actually bots. So every time you say greetings programs, you might not be wrong.
I might not be what?
Wrong in that statement.
Oh, yeah, no, there's plenty of programs out there. Uh, Something's got to account for our numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get started into it. So Cyberpunk in general. I'm gonna quickly go through some kind of bits and pieces for the genre in general. Apparently, news broke today that Lana Wachowski is going to be executive producer on a new Matrix film, written and directed by Drew Goddard. It is still unsure whether or not the first or any of the original actors are going to be in it. But supposedly a script has been created, and it is supposedly like a homage to the original one. So, not sure when that's getting released, if it even gets to be released. So I think it's just right now planned. In other media news, we have Furioso coming out next month.
Oh, so very
Finally.
excited about that one.
I know, it's been, what, about a
Yeah,
year since
finally.
they
It's
shown the trailer? Feels like forever.
yeah.
Um,
Um, but I mean, George Miller's directing, and I have complete faith in that dude. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about the people who talk shit about Thunderdome. I really don't care about the people who talk shit about Fury Road. Those movies were both good. Fury Road was fantastic, and this movie, it looks balls to the wall, and I'm
yeah.
okay with that.
And supposedly they are starting to film Wasteland, which is Mad Max, the sequel to Fury Road.
Ooh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I saw a little blurb about that. Probably because they're done with Furioso and moving into the sequel from Mad Max. Other things, there is another show movie. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be, but it's called The Beast, which is the plot is the year is 2044. Artificial intelligence controls all facets of a society as humans routinely erase their feelings. I wonder if this is kind of like Christ, what was that movie with Christian Bale?
Equilibrium?
Yes, I'm
No,
wondering if
was it? No,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, where they got rid of all their emotions. But that's coming out
Yeah, with the
supposedly in 2 days. So
gun katas and stuff.
yeah, so that is a possible dystopian future. Sounds like it. And
Yeah.
another movie that also is coming out in May, starring Jennifer Lopez, is Atlas. A brilliant but misanthropic data analyst with a deep distrust of AI joins a mission to capture a renegade robot with whom she shares a mysterious past. But when plans go awry, her only hope of saving the future of humanity from AI is to trust it. So,
Hmm.
sounds kind of like a little bit of iRobot.
A little bit.
One thing that
Uh,
can't
that's, uh,
good.
I was just gonna say that's iRobot the movie, not iRobot the book.
Right.
While I enjoyed the movie thoroughly, it had about as much in common with the book as yeah, it had nothing in common with the book other than the fact there were robots in it.
Um, Another thing coming out May 3rd is something called Mars Express. The year is
Yeah,
2200. It's a
I saw
animated.
a bit about that.
Check out its
I'm pretty
trailer.
excited about that one.
The trailer looks
Yeah, definitely check
freaking
out the trailer.
amazing. It is a cyberpunk movie, most definitely, because it has that today feel with future technology brought into it. And again, it's playing on the whole trope of the AIs and the evolution of AIs and robots. I know that story has been told plenty of times, but the flavors
That's
that
okay.
it's
Every
told
story
in,
has been
yeah,
told plenty of times.
how it's
Um,
told is always an interesting way, and especially the visuals on this look freaking amazing.
Absolutely, 100% agreed.
So definitely check that out. The other thing is something called Arena Wars, which seems like it's a Running Man type of thing, in which you this televised sport event. You have to survive 7 rooms with 7 of the most vicious killers to get your freedom.
Oh, kind of like a cross between Running Man and the Cube.
Yes.
Speaking of Running Man, they're working on bringing that. I don't know if it's going to be a movie or a series, but I did hear that that is being put into production,
Yeah, I heard
like
there's
an
talk about
updated
it.
version of that, which is always exciting. I don't know if they're gonna. From what I understand, they're trying to go more closer to the original book by Bachman, which is Stephen King's pseudonym, his pen name. Uh, I'd really like to see The Long Walk get made. Like, I'd very much like to see that. That was my favorite of the Bachman books. But Running Man has always been, the close second for me, and everybody loves the Running Man movie.
Yeah. Everyone loves Arnie.
Yeah, and like there was that period where he was just making, cyberpunk or cyberpunk adjacent movies back to back.
Yes.
Like Terminator, Terminator 2, Running Man, Total Recall. I mean, the dude was there.
I don't know if this is necessarily cyberpunk, but there's a movie that's coming out called Breathe. And I guess it's post Earth, that now Earth is kind of inhabitable and humanity is looking for oxygen. So
I mean, the
definitely,
visuals, it'll be cyberpunk adjacent probably.
yeah,
But I mean, there's a lot of those out there, and sometimes that adjacent cyberpunk is every bit as groovy as anything else. I mean, that's just the way it works sometimes. You take your cyberpunk where you can get it.
exactly. Other things in news is Cyberpunk 2077's Kick It Down, a new graphic novel series or comic book series from Dark Horse, is coming out
Yeah,
in June or July. Is the first issue is dropping. So I
I'm
guess,
actually looking forward to this one more than any of the others based on what I'm seeing of it. Uh,
well, it's about
I
a
don't know. XOXO was good, but it got I think that story could have been told in like one issue. Like they didn't need to
Yeah,
drag that out 4 issues of uh
I think the crazy
of a
art.
Maelstrom member, yeah, having fucking weird hallucinations about cartoons. Like it was an interesting concept, but like I said, I think that could have been told in one issue.
Yeah, I've noticed that it seems like the styles continue to change with each series
Yeah,
that they
they
produce.
the the artists are wildly different from each other, and I'd really like to see a cyberpunk series done with like a more clean style of art,
Mm.
uh, something along the lines of like you know Jim Lee or Alan Davis, or just somebody with cleaner lines. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I like that they're all stylized, but I'd like to see a baseline.
Right. So there is that. The other thing that happened last week was that CDPR published their earnings call. So there was some
Yeah,
tidbits on what the future holds for the game, or at least for the Cyberpunk game, 2077. That looks like there is still about a dozen and a half developers on 2077. I assume that they're doing some bug fixes, which are still out
yeah,
there. They might
that's not
be.
a very large staff, so I can't imagine them doing much more than that.
Well,
Uh,
with 2.12, they did introduce a new possible mystery, which I don't know. It's hard to tell whether whether the cyberpunk players are so paranoid that are looking into any conspiracy
yeah,
and seeing
I
things that
mean
aren't there.
they'll see a piece of graffiti that they may have never noticed, and like wrap a whole freaking video around it, when in reality it's something that's been there since the start. So
Well, there is a new thing with 2.12. It's a phone that you can use. It's out where Johnny Grave is. That wasn't
yeah, way
there.
out in the
Yeah,
junkyard.
that wasn't there in the previous version. And if you do call it, I guess it does a reset on the game. Some say it was a
A
develop.
reset?
Yeah, so it basically reloads the game for you. Someone's saying that it was a QA tool that kind of got left in the game.
Hmm. I haven't ever actually gone and done anything with it because, well, it's a phone
Yeah,
out in the middle of nowhere. Uh,
yeah. There's a YouTuber
yeah,
I
yeah, that's
follow
interesting.
called Juicehead. He does a lot of he still does cyberpunk kind of tidbits of what came out with the game. He's not he's not a lore guy. He's more or less deals with the computer game itself. Right? Hey, did you notice this? Here are a bunch of new mods that are making the game better. Uh, Kind of does some insight into like I said that quirkiness that people found. Gives kind of reviews of anything new with the game. He also does other video games, but I like his content because he doesn't try to claim things that aren't necessarily true versus some lore
Yeah,
people.
there's a lot of those lore dudes who are just talking out their ass, like taking bits without context and just expanding on them in their own little heads.
Well, they're also being guided by the wiki, and the wiki also is written by people who I
Don't know
feel
what they're
don't.
talking about.
Well, it's not that they don't know what they're talking about. They only know a little bit of what they're talking about, right? They didn't dig in and uncover more of what was going on. Like, I've noticed a lot of
Yes,
assumptions that a lot of the stuff is strictly Mike's Mike writing it all, which Mike comes out like when we talking with Dave last time. Mike comes up with the ideas and then he hands it over to someone else to flesh out, right? Like Ray
Yeah, make this
Bartmoss.
into something.
So, and I don't think a lot of these lore people actually read the old source books and read who are the actual writers.
It's just like the explosion of lore videos that came out when the video game was in development, where
Yeah.
they were just taking the old source books, reading a passage word for word without and not understanding the context of it. They're just
All right.
going on from there. Like, you can always tell the difference between somebody who's actually played the game and somebody who's just trying to get hits.
Yep. So, anyways, we were talking about the development. So, like I said, there's a dozen and a half developers on the current game. There are 40 plus members of the development team working on Project Orion, which is a sequel.
That's the good news right there.
So that is the assumption of they have kind of set up their Boston offices and are starting to go
Oh,
through the concept art, fleshing out quest lines, basically creating the new game. And they got quite a few of the powerhouses involved. Like some of the developers are from other games. I'm trying to remember who they are, but they've worked on
I
other
I
AAA games. Oh,
I
and
know one of the main quest writers has retired from CDPR and gone somewhere else. I don't know how much that'll affect things. Uh, oh, and before we get inundated with a bunch of people asking us, uh, on the first there were people posting a supposed screenshot from, I think it was Rockstar Games, or it was either supposed to be from Rockstar Games or CDPR, saying that CDPR and Rockstar were teaming up to work on a Rockstar IP or a CDPR IP, and everybody was like, "Is Rockstar going to be working on Cyberpunk?" That's an April Fool's joke, people. Pay it no mind. April Fools. Just getting that out of the way now
yeah,
before that spreads too far.
yeah,
Also, the Expanse comic Dragon Tooth is up to issue 9 of 12. It picks up about a year after where the TV show ended. I recommend reading that. It's good stuff. It's got all the feel of the show. Um,
Well, the novels, there's like 3 or 4 novels after the series ends.
yeah,
So I guess
I mean, there's still plenty of Expanse goodness, which is about as good as space cyberpunk gets.
yeah. Yeah, well, it has the aliens. It's cyberpunk adjacent,
Okay,
but
cyberpunk adjacent.
so yeah. So yeah, there's and they in the earnings call they also did talk about working with Anonymous and coming up with a project for that, and that it is still they're still working on it, which to me tells me that there might be a possible future live action cyberpunk show movie. Don't know quite exactly what it'll be, but
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it wouldn't surprise me, um, because the IP is just, I mean, it's taken off like a rocket at heights that we never would have dreamed of. So really, it's hard to surprise me with news about the Cyberpunk franchise anymore.
yeah,
Live action would be cool.
it
Uh,
would. Speaking of live action, I know Mr. Mulligan has been working on a little short.
yeah,
His visuals coming out look pretty fun. It'd be interesting
We
to see
talked
what
a little bit
happens.
about that last episode, but the interview had us cut that short.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rob Mulligan's short film for 2077 looks really good. I
Yes.
can't wait till it's finished and all that. I don't know if it's entered post production yet or where he's at with that. But the visuals he has posted on his Facebook feed all look pretty incredible.
Yeah. So, Rob, we're waiting on you. Okay. So moving on to the tabletop game. So there's been two DLCs since we've talked about the DLCs that have dropped. One from March, towards the end, is a DLC about agents. I did a quick cursory through this. I like where they're going with this. They definitely give a lot of lore background on agents, also the ability to hack agents, and new features to be added to the agent, which I like, and the different versions of types of agents. So to me, it definitely reminds me of all the phone add-ins you could do from the Chromebooks for your portable and your mobile.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of those things that like something of this nature should have been expanded upon a long time ago. Uh, like I'm not going to say during the 2020 era of books because cell phones really didn't take off until after the 2020 line was pretty much done. Um, like they were really just starting to become like the Nokias. That was the age of the Nokias.
Yep.
Uh, well before smartphones. Um,
Well, I mean,
but yeah,
I had a, oh, no, they don't make it anymore, but I had a Motorola, which basically had modules that you could plug onto the back of the phone.
I remember those.
Oh, dude, we still use them because it has an awesome camera
Yeah,
module.
and they're indestructible.
Yeah, and you could have like a camera. You could put on a speaker. There was one module that you could plug onto the back that was like a projector. And I just love that idea. Or an extra battery, right?
Yeah, most
So,
people went with the extra battery, and those things were fucking huge.
sorry, I
It gets
couldn't type
so
it,
freaking hot.
but was listening. We filmed the Cyberpunk short. It is in post production. It's based on an idea between episode 3 and 4 of edgerunners. Really, you gonna give the plot away
Oh,
too? Jeez.
see, there's Rob coming in with the info in the comments.
So you're giving the plot of of the of edgerunners away. So in episode 3, David kills a cyberclaw on a cyberbike chase. We make an episode, David trying to mend
Mend the
the
bridges with
bridges with
tiger
the.
claws. Yeah, that sounds interesting. That explains a lot of the images you've been posting.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very cool, Rob. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. The other DLC that came out on April 1st, of course, is VA 11 Hall A
Valhalla.
Valhalla, which is, I guess,
Uh,
best on the computer game, which I
yeah,
have not played.
it's a cyberpunk bartending game, which is a weird concept, but it's a pretty good game. It's very simple, very like it's something that really comes across more of like a phone game. Like it's an indie game, so it's just real simple in application. Although the graphics are cool and all that. But the idea of bartenders in a bar and getting this kind of attention in Red is good stuff. My biggest complaint is if you're going to have a DLC based all around bartending, you need to have some real drinks and real drink recipes. Like, I get that they're trying to emulate the game with the way the game mixes drinks, but there needs to be some kind of chart to show you what these components, like what's Bronson extract. What the fuck is Bronson extract? What's Flannerguide?
Do you really want to know what Bronson
Parmetrine,
extract is?
powdered Delta.
It's
Like,
Bronson extract is the extraction of juices from Charles Bronson's corpse.
it tastes like buffalo. But yeah, I would have very much liked some real drink recipes. A little bit of, like, it's great to have flavor for the game, but sometimes I want some flavor for me, you know?
Yes.
Some spicy flavor. But overall, I enjoyed both of these DLCs.
Yeah.
I think they're both useful. You can never have too many fleshed out bars in Cyberpunk at all. Like, that just can't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. We are still waiting on the Edgerunner supplement from Artalsorian. I can't give you any status on that because we are never told anything because
No,
they are tight-lipped with everything.
we try and get them to slip. We desperately try and get them to slip, but these dudes will be on our show, and then 2 days later they'll announce some stuff that, like, we directly asked them about, and then, like, we're just like, dude, you couldn't have just, like, we've got an audience of 12. You couldn't have just shared that with the 12 people in our audience.
It's not like everyone's gonna hear. But yeah, that's still on its way. There is still talk about other things in the works with that team. So
Yeah.
can't wait.
And Edgerunners won't just be the like an adaptation from the anime, but it'll be your official 2077 Cyberpunk Red sourcebook expansion, whatever you want to call it. So you can play in the 2077 world.
Yep. And Monster Fight Club has previewed both at Gamma and at Adepticon the new Edgerunner edition for
those minis
Combat
look
Zone.
so good.
Yeah, but the thing is, the original box set, you got two gangs. The Edgerunner box set, I don't know if they're just reducing the price. I hope they're reducing the price. They're doing the plastic standees and not necessarily the figures that come with it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
Again, I don't know if they were just doing a demo of the prototype.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing like little plastic standees that are kind of like two-dimensional and not really the 3D minis.
Yeah, I'm not doing minis. I'm not that I can afford to do anything, but I'm not even going to bother with it.
Right.
I can print out standees myself.
Well, they're acrylic standees, right? They look.
I don't care. They're still two-dimensional.
They have.
They may be neat, but I'm not paying those prices for two-dimensional nonsense.
Well, again, like I said, I don't know if the costs for the box set is going to be reduced compared to buying the box set.
And there may be, actual minis on the way. Time will tell. It's still being developed, but yeah, we'll see.
Exactly. But They also showed 4 new packs of minis. One of which is a corporate or edgerunner set with 3 minis, and one of them is Lisa Pondsmith. So not
Oh,
only
nice.
so not only has Mike gotten a miniature, Lisa as well.
That's very cool.
It is. So
Wonder how she feels about that. I bet she's thrilled.
I'm sure she is, but I don't think she necessarily. I think she's honored.
She, yeah, she definitely doesn't hasn't appeared to enjoy the spotlight as much. She prefers being like behind the scenes, but she was also, the person you talked to whenever you called Art Talsorian or wrote them. So it's long overdue. She's getting the love she deserves.
Exactly. Especially when she's the one who created, Spider Murphy and Alt Cunningham. Yeah, so was there anything else that I was Oh, and they are also doing a second printing of the base game for Combat Zone. So it's going to have updated rules with all the errata included in it. That's also coming out as well.
Yeah, and they're redoing a bunch of their like miniatures that they sold as individuals before the board game they released to include basically it'll just be the same miniatures but including the stat cards and whatnot for them so you can so it makes them more compatible with the game.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm led to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be an
I'm
expensive set. Because I know how much their miniatures are, right? So
Yeah, they're
they're
not cheap.
generally around $5 to $7 per mini.
Yeah,
And
it's weird that the
two,
plastic
three,
minis
four, five, six, seven,
are more
nine.
expensive than like the metal minis.
It's a higher quality. Metal
It is. The
minis.
sculpts are much better. They're much more detailed. I'll agree to that. But it's kind of like uh, it's the same with CDs. CDs were much cheaper to produce, but they were like $10 more. And those prices just stayed fixed until basically the end of uh, physical media. I
Yeah.
don't know. I haven't been in a record store
I
for
don't know.
anything other than like old stuff in years.
And I don't know if Monster Fight Club prints their minis or manufactures their minis in states versus China. That I would
I don't
have.
know either. They seem to ship to me pretty quick, and they were definitely shipped from their actual like location.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean they're not printed somewhere else, and they just keep a stockpile of them there.
I don't
So
know.
I'm not really sure.
I have a feeling that they do. I know that Simon, they're definitely from China because I've seen during the Kickstarter they talked about
Yeah.
how stuff was going with the manufacturer and about all the packaging being on ship. Whereas I don't
And
remember seeing any mention of any cargo ships specifically from Monster Fight Club.
yeah, I don't remember seeing that either. It's an interesting question. Maybe one of these days we can get somebody from Monster Fight Club on the show and ask them.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a good idea. Maybe we can. I'll try to reach out to someone from that team to see about getting on our call list. So that's about it. So half an
Yeah.
hour of news, of Cyberpunk news, and now we can get into our topic.
Good news with Gary Gnews.
So we are hopefully going to finish up Land of the Free. We stopped about midway point, which corresponds to the next section. So we have gone from the initial meeting, or the initial setup of the adventure in New York. The intrepid adventurers took a airship to try to get to Night City. They have a person that they extracted to take them to Night City. You come to find out that she is a very wanted person by the corporation.
Very wanted.
The team was downed in Tennessee.
The Appalachians.
Appalachians, yes. And then they had to make their way to Memphis, in which they met with, or possible encounter with the Elvises. Again,
Elvises everywhere.
Never know with the. So it's Nashville, Memphis, and trying to get across country. So the Fixer is kind of like pushing them in. Some of the plot has been revealed that the person that they have is an actual clone of somebody, or at least they start hinting at it. The original Fixer they were using has been killed off stage, and they're kind of on their own. And they are being contacted by another Fixer who claims to be a partner of the first Fixer and who's looking to help them. He guides them and tells them to head down the Mississippi. So there is a chapter around the journey in which the players hire a small nomad family to take them down the river, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. There's some side adventures on the venture down the Mississippi, with some fairly interesting characters.
Yeah.
But as we left off, the characters at this stage in the adventure would be pulling into New Orleans for the next section, which is called Delta Blues.
Yes. So, also in this part, the team might have hacked into Adriana's brain and uncovered a wealth of data around who she is, the experiments that were used to create her, and that information is gold. And that, I think, is where a lot of the decisions of the players will dictate how you continue to run this game, because now you know how much value she's worth, and whether the players are going to offer her up to the highest bidder. Are they going to help her get to Night City? Are they going to continue to trust this new Fixer? Are they going to reach out to possibly another one of their contacts? So it's kind of up in the air. And I think this last chapter, with the going down the Mississippi and losing the Fixer, that the players are kind of starting to have multiple forks in how the rest of the adventure continues. So the assumption with this next chapter is you're going to see the new Fixer that has reached out to them, a man by the name of Michael Hart. In the previous chapter, he instructed the team to come down to New Orleans so he can help them continue their journey to get to Night City. And the reason why you're kind of supposed to avoid going fully across country and heading south and then west is to avoid any possible roadblocks that have been set up by the corporation, right?
Yeah, you're trying to throw them off the trail by going the roundabout way instead of taking a direct route.
So this kind of is an area in which the referee really needs to kind of
Tighten
railroad the
it.
party into these areas. But you could also, again, you definitely want to read through the whole book, and you don't want to try to force players into certain situations, but see how you can adapt these chapters into the routes that they're looking for. Right? So New Orleans, the key things in New Orleans is the fixer, their encounter with
Yeah.
the fixer, if they choose to
At
encounter the fixer.
at this point in the adventure, the if the GM is doing it right, the players should really feel like this is their best option, and kind of their only option, because this is where the support that they're going to need lies. Uh, they're in the middle of you know they're on the Mississippi River, would be well out of any of the it should be well out of any of the characters' comfort zones. You might have a nomad who might have some contacts, but the GM finds ways around those. So yeah, you're going to want your characters to end up in New Orleans, um, and feel like they really kind of have no other viable options.
Yeah.
The more you can make them feel like it's their idea, the better. But at the end of the day, this is where they're going to be, because this is where the adventure takes place.
Exactly. So, if they do meet with Hart, he's going to be hanging at Antoine's, which is an actual place in New Orleans. I believe it's the oldest operating, and I don't know if it still exists, but I know from the 90s my wife actually went there. It's the oldest operating restaurant in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I was there when we lived on the Gulf Coast in the 80s.
Yeah. I don't know if Will Moss was basing this Anton's because it's a district club, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
I mean, Antoine's is huge. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I, I would assume that he had been there and, or at least heard of the place.
Yep.
Heck, I think in the James Bond Live and Let Die, I think they go to Antoine's, or at least Antoine's is seen in the movie.
Right. So if they do meet Hart, he does have a plan for them, in which he's going to try to get them transported through Corpus Christi or New Galveston. I forget which one, but basically he's trying to get them through Texas via the offshore rigs. So there's quite a section in here that talks about nomad life in the Gulf and how nomads have taken up refuge in some of the offshore oil rigs that litter the Gulf. And the one good thing about this book is that actually it's not only an adventure, but it also adds a lot to, or supplements some of the lore that's within Home of the Brave.
And Neo Tribes.
And Neo Tribes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, like this, I don't know which came first, this or Neo Tribes. I want to say this came first, but basically, the idea of Medikey springs from the information in this book,
Yep.
or expands on it, whichever came first.
Also, in this chapter, they are going to start getting in contact with a media called Sachel
Satchel Stabot.
Sabot, which they might have already known about her from a previous chapter, right? So if the,
Yeah, I think chapter 2 they could have gotten in contact with her as one of their
yep,
possible contacts. But either way, she becomes important in this one.
correct. So she is kind of the don't trust Hart, trust her. So it's going to be interesting to play that off with the player's paranoia on who can be trusted. And spoiler alert, it's going to be the media, I'm afraid.
Yeah, as um, it leads to some very interesting role playing opportunities as each one tries to feed the players information, and the players have to discern which one they do trust. Um, and yeah, it turns out to be the media, like he said.
Yeah.
I actually really like Satchel Sabot as a character. I like all the characters in this book. I need to just stop saying that. But she's one of the better thought out medias presented in any of the Cyberpunk books, to be honest. Every bit as interesting a character as, say, Bess Isis or the media from Never Fade Away, Thompson.
Yep.
Actually, she's far more interesting than Thompson.
What about Bess Isis?
That was the first one I mentioned.
Oh.
But yeah, she's as interesting as the Bess Isis. And there's way more information about her than there ever was about Bess.
Rocker Boy had quite a bit about Bess.
Yeah, I kind of, but it was more about her career as a rocker and her transitioning into a journalist.
Right. Yeah, I wonder who. Do you think Lisa Pondsmith was Bess Isis?
I mean, she's really the only woman
Well,
that's part of the crew that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I don't know of any.
But keep in mind that, guys played female characters.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying. Players, we can't. That's what I was getting into, is we can't just assign every female character to her.
Yeah.
Which seems to be our gut response. Well, I wonder if I had the same thoughts, but
Well, I know this is a little bit.
This is a really cool character, and
yeah.
She's definitely from the 2013 days.
Yeah. Just this simple rambling about female characters and the players that play them. I have noticed, at least in my experience, when I have female players, they usually play female characters, whereas the opposite is true for males, right? I've known plenty of players who've shifted between the genders.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that too. Hell, I've played female characters just to break the monotony.
Yeah.
But at some point, I don't know, at some point playing a female character, if you're a dude, can become awkward.
Yeah.
I don't know if that exists for women players playing dudes. I don't know if that same awkwardness would exist for them. I would imagine it would be the opposite, that women playing women characters. I know that gets awkward. Unfortunately. Which is usually the sign that they're playing with the wrong people, but...
Yeah. I mean, all the female players I've played with never really got too awkward.
Well, no, because you probably have a decent group
of decent human beings around me, yeah.
Yeah, who are decent human beings and all that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think for us, having a female player was A, a rare occurrence, and B, we don't want to fuck it up because we like hanging out with girls,
Yeah, we definitely
especially
like hanging
as
out
a
with
teenage
girls.
boy,
Well, I mean, even beyond, just that aspect, it's women bring a different perspective.
They do.
And you want female characters because female characters exist.
Yep.
So you want them to be represented, and you want them to be represented honestly, and not as jokes.
Yeah.
I've always appreciated having women players in my game.
Yeah.
Whether they're playing male or female, I just like having women players in my game. Um, I like getting as much representation in a game that's all about, representation and being yourself and all that as
Yeah.
possible.
Well, anyways, back to Delta Blues.
Yeah, that was a long rant.
Yeah. So, like every chapter, you have possible random encounters, optional counters that you can do. One of them can be kind of detrimental, which is crossing the cops and getting thrown in jail.
Yeah,
Which, of course, then leads into how the hell you're going to break out of it, and who's going to come and rescue you and bail you out. So, I like that they had a hurricane and have
yeah,
rules for working with a hurricane. Sounds fun. Oh, by the way, if you're in New Orleans as a GM, you have to stress A, the sticky heat that is down there.
sticky. It's awful. Like, I don't care what I love New Orleans, but
Yeah.
that is the last place I ever want to live again. Like, I didn't. I lived in Gulf, in near Biloxi,
I've
which
only
is just that same stretch of Gulf Coast,
Yeah.
and it was god awful.
I've only visited. My sister lived there for about 8 months. So as a visitor, I can tell you these things. A, it was hot and sticky, and according to my sister who lived down there, it's wonderful weather. And B,
Yeah, no. I go ahead.
that there is a peculiar aroma that the city has.
Stench. Oh, there's some
That's
stench
I understand why people are pretty wasted when they go there.
all the time. And why the biggest holiday in New Orleans is all about taking off your clothes.
Yeah.
I moved to Biloxi, Ocean Springs, from Alaska. Yeah, straight from Alaska to Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which is right there, right next to Biloxi. In the summertime, so it was a bit of a shock for my tiny little system at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I got heat stroke twice. Yeah, no, I. There are a lot of things to appreciate about the South. The heat is never going to be one of them.
Yeah.
At least not for me. Never again.
Unless you get into the dry heat of like New Mexico and Arizona.
Yeah, I don't really call that's the West. That's not
Yeah.
the South. That's just the West. Maybe
Well-
the Southwest. The
Well,
West.
I mean, it's south, right? It is one of the southern states along the border.
I mean, it is. It is.
Anyways, so just keep that in mind if you've never been to New Orleans. You definitely want to portray that, especially with characters who are wearing crapload of armor. Make them
Jesus
suffer.
Christ. Make them suffer. Throw down as many endurance checks as you can. Give those fuckers heat stroke. Like, just do it and don't even feel bad about it.
So, anyways, one of the required encounters, which is episode 3, called Bourbon Street Showdown, they are going to be encountering a headhunter or bounty hunter called
Bounty hunter.
Bayou Slim.
Bayou Slim.
He is no joke. He is one of the.
Yes.
He is going to
He
be a
would give-
challenge.
Like, his stats would give Blackhand a run for his money. Like, he is no fucking joke.
Yeah.
Like, intelligence 10, reflex 10, 12, cool of 10, movement allowance of 10, body of 12.
Out of the 9 stats he has, 4 of them are below 10. All of them are above 5.
Yeah.
His
And his skills are
skills,
just as ridiculous. Like, Jesus. The dude is a monster.
the one thing that I think he has that is not going for him, and again, you got to scale this towards your players. Parent, were his parents killed in a train wreck? He might have been. They might have been. The one, the one weakness he has is his armor is shit.
Yeah.
And if you're throwing him against the players, you need to give him some armored jeans and a better armored jacket, because
his armor isn't shit because he's got skin weed.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not total shit.
Right. It says
but
P12.
like, he definitely wears minimal armor. His only armor
is the jacket.
SP8. Like, because it's fucking New Orleans and it's hot as hell. And, if your players are doing it right when they're walking down the streets, they're not going to have much more.
Yeah, so an SP of 17 for his body and arms, I guess, isn't too bad.
Yeah. His weapons aren't very... his weapons are pretty underpowered for the amount of skill the dude's got. Like, he's carrying around, 10 millimeter handgun and a 9 millimeter submachine gun. Yeah, so he's not busting out the big guns.
Yeah, the Minami.
But one would think that if he needs to, he's going to do some research on his dudes, at least following around for a while. And if they look like they're all borged out, he's probably going to pick up some bigger stuff. He definitely would have access to it.
Yeah, Volps, a mono would definitely... Monos can deal quite severe damage, especially against Skinweave. In my campaign, which is a space campaign, the players were able to acquire a flechette weapon, and they were fighting against somebody with Skinweave, and they took that guy out so quick. Even though they're only doing 1 or 2 points of damage, if you're hit them with 10 shots,
that's all you need.
That's all you need.
I mean, flechettes are brutal, and they're super armor piercing, just nasty.
So he's going to attack. So, anyways, Bayou Slim is going to attack the players. Will Moss gives 3 different areas in which he can attack them at. Well, 4, and how he will approach each scenario differently. He also has solos with him. So the solos are even no joke. Even though they have a couple of 10s, they still have 9s for like pretty much all their other stats. And it's funny that they have empathies of 9 for hired hustle. But yeah, so he's going to be a bit of a threat. Now, he also and he needs to survive. So
yeah, he's going to be a recurring. He's set up to be a recurring enemy throughout the campaign from this point.
So if the players are starting to attack him and starting to do severe damage, he is not dumb, especially with an intelligence of 10. He will run.
Yeah, I don't. for all the talk of our Tal story and the trends to create, you don't need to have 10s and everything, and blah blah blah. Keep your characters don't let your characters get too powerful, and that's all min-maxing and whatnot. And for them to throw this guy at you, like just halfway through the adventure, because believe me, there's worse to come. It's kind of like, what the hell?
Well, I think
It's
Mr. Moss has probably encountered players that we've encountered. You know.
yeah, yeah. But it's like throwing Roy Batty at Deckard. Like players are just going to get their asses kicked.
Yes. Um, even if you throw Borgs at a group of players, even a Borg can be pretty easily handled by some of the players I've had. So yeah, so that's an encounter with him. It is kind of a required to show that they are under threat and by a serious adversary. So I think, like we said last episode in part one, is that this adventure is definitely not a adventure for first timers. You could, but if that's the case, you might have to scale back some of his stuff or
Yeah,
some of his abilities. Cause,
this campaign is definitely for more experienced players who've got some experience under their belt. Uh, I mean,
yeah, because he's working off
up
of a 17. He's working off of base plus 20 to his handgun skill, and a base 20 off of a rifle. So
yeah,
he ain't
base
missing.
20 off of melee.
Yeah, he's not missing at close range. Even if he aims for your head, he is not missing. That is he is a one serious character, especially with a combat sense of 10, which means he's like, yeah. Morgan has a combat sense of 10. I hope. If he doesn't,
Yeah,
then,
I don't know how. Like, there's two solos in this book that I don't know how they didn't make it into the top 10 solo list.
yeah,
These guys are just monsters. We'll get to the other one later.
yeah.
But
So he does have a group with him, and again, that group also is not. I don't see where it says the CPS for this encounter. Maybe I missed it. CPS -1. So basically, you're throwing Bayou Slim plus
one less member of the party.
Yeah, one less member of the party of solos. So technically, it's an equal 1-to-1. But man, they are going to have a hard time. I would suggest doing this out in public, so in case it starts going badly for the players, you have the capability of bringing in the cops to come
As
in and save their asses.
as cliche as it might be, it's New Orleans. You might as well throw it during Mardi Gras.
Yeah. So they have that
Big
encounter.
crowds, crowded streets.
Yep, big crowds, crowded streets, and also it's it is the South, so good chance that 80% of all the, well, probably a higher percentage chance that all the festival goers also have weapons that will be broken out and start shooting. So that could be an entertaining kind of scenario.
You don't want to know where some of them are hiding those weapons.
Yeah, if also in this particular chapter, if you look at so each chapter has a full page piece of art. This chapter, there is not a lot of clothing. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's Mardi Gras.
It's hiding the bits.
It's drunken naked
It's.
and bees, lots of bees, so many bees.
I think it's more like Brazil's Carnival than.
Well, yeah, I mean that's pretty much what Mardi Gras is.
Yeah. Oh,
Just not as large scale, and and the women don't dance as well.
Yeah.
That's nothing against the dancers in New Orleans, but I mean,
So I'm wondering if
Rio's got a whole different vibe.
this book is the first piece of art that shows a skull G string for a guy.
I think it's certainly. I think it might be the first one in the Cyberpunk line, at least.
Yeah. Because I'm sure Vallejo or who was the other guy?
Vallejo, Frazetta.
Yeah, Frazetta.
They they didn't mind that kind of stuff.
No. Well, both of those painters were also like in peak physical condition, right? They totally believed in maintaining your body at the peak.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they were hired to do the covers for things like Conan and John Carter of Mars and Tarzan and things like that.
I actually watched a documentary on Rossetti, and he's an interesting character.
He's a very interesting dude. Like, he's a good dude.
Yeah. Anyways, less tangent, more focus, because we only got 50 minutes left. Unit 2, I know, and we've only been in 4 pages within this chapter. So Unit 2 is basically...
That's okay, that means it's a good.
Yeah, so the next section is basically Unit 2, which is Deepwater, which is now getting into the oil rigs and the Nomad Society. Just a few encounters here. Again, this is kind of like setting the players up with who are they going to trust, which is going to dictate, where they're going to go to next. The other thing in here is that Adriana is starting to have feelings for one of the players and is going to try to act upon those feelings. So this is if your players can't handle feelings and touchy-feely stuff, try to do more fade to black than anything else. And also do not make the players just like shove this off. Make them understand.
Yeah, don't make the players uncomfortable, but at the same time, there should be an emotional connection there.
Yep.
They should be feeling, personally invested in Adriana at this point.
Exactly. And I think that's why it was kind of introduced, to kind of give that connection to a specific player. So do not allow her to come on to a player who is just going to not
squick out.
Yeah.
Or go the opposite direction. Like, choose your player wisely.
Yeah.
You want to pick like the guy who's mature enough to handle it, and is okay with handling it. Like, don't force your players to be uncomfortable on either side of that spectrum, because you don't want to give the romance to somebody who's going to perv out, because that'll make everybody else uncomfortable, including the GM, probably, hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, so at the end of this particular section, you are going to be introduced to a new character, Okano, who is working with Hart. Okano is a Arasaka operative. We're going to learn a little bit more about him later, his background, but basically Hart and Hart are working together to get the players into Galveston to kind of take Adriana. However, again, at the end of this chapter, they're and throughout the later chapters, Will Moss presents the scenarios in which what choices the players have made, right? So, for example, here in this chapter, there's a section for if the characters have already talked to Sashil Sabat, Another section if the characters have not talked to Satchel Sabat. If the
Hello?
characters contact, yes, okay, maybe on the phone. If the characters contact Kano, so they Will Moss kind of gives a 1 to 2 paragraph kind of hints on how the players might have made choices. So it's a bit of a
Yeah.
decision tree that Will Moss presents, and what are the repercussions for those choices. And again, he's not going to be able to he doesn't cover all of the possibilities, but he does a damn good job of covering quite a few. I have to hand it
Yeah.
to him that, in those different scenarios or in those different decisions, as a GM, you kind of know your players, right? And you know where they would head with certain things. And I think he understood the possibility as who's going to be, what choices players are going to make, right? Because 9 times out of 10, the players are going to choose one of these options. Sometimes the players
Yeah.
surprise you. Oftentimes, if you've been gaming with them for quite a while, you're not going to be very surprised by their decisions.
Yeah. And you really got to give it to Will. Like this kind of thing is tricky for a lot of GMs trying to set this up, and he really goes the extra mile in like you said, giving the repercussions depending on their choice. I mean, at its heart, there's there's three choices. There's side with Satchel, Sabo, side with Osaka Kano, or Okano, side with Okano, or you can try and keep them both on the line. But either way, I mean, it's possible the players may decide to just say screw it to all of them and go their own way. But that's really not going to be like they're not going to have any contacts in the area. They're not going to have the resources they need, and that needs to be stressed by the GM.
Yep.
They should already be feeling that way. Like, to be honest.
Yeah, and at the end of this chapter, there's actual a map of all the different oil rigs that are out there. So you could actually use this map to create your own campaign of a nomad seagoing campaign, because you
Yeah.
can leverage this to kind of like map out that type of campaign, and
Yeah, it gives all the various oil rigs and just banded together floating man-made islands and fortresses in the nomads as well as professionals, and it covers the whole of the Gulf of Mexico. You absolutely could use this for an aquatic nomad campaign, and have that run for years, to be honest.
right.
I really, looking at this, I actually am feeling kind of remorseful that I didn't try and include this in my in more detail in my map of my amalgamated map of the U.S., especially for the nomad campaigns.
Right. Also, one thing I neglected to say. So, at the end of this chapter, if you do accept Akano's offer, right, in which he's going to take you to Galveston, he will meet you out on an airstrip, take possession of Adriana, and then attempt to kill the party with their guards. So, this is kind of where the split really happens. And again, Hart is on his side, so I think it could be a nice, dramatic scene, especially out in the airfield and doing an escape. So this is where the players understand that technically there's only one person who's on their side currently, which is Satchel. Shachel?
Yeah,
Is that how we would say her name?
Satchel. I would just say Satchel. Like, that's how it's spelled.
Well, it's
Uh,
could have that European flair of Chechel.
it could. It could be.
Or it could be
Well, I mean, I
Marcy.
think if it was spelled, it would probably, be, especially if it were European, it'd probably have ELLE at the end. Um, I don't know. I've always just said Satchel Sabot.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so yeah,
so that means the players in the next chapter are heading into Texas at Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi.
In this chapter,
Yeah,
it's yeah,
either way, they're going into Texas. If they side with Ocano, they'll be in Galveston, and that'll all happen. At which point, then they'll have to make their way to Corpus Christi, or parts unknown. It could very well be that if they try and side with him, that's the end of the campaign.
yep,
If they side with Satchel, like he said, they make their way to Corpus Christi through all the various nomad aquatic ports.
yep. In the first unit, which is Corpus Christi, it fleshes out some of Texas's RIN or RIN. It's similar to a SIN, but it's for the Texas, which is the Republic
Yeah, because
identification number,
Texas got to be different.
of course. So the players have a choice of, ignoring getting a RIN, sneaking into Texas. What does that mean? Getting a fake one. What does that mean? And then getting into Corpus Christi. So Corpus Christi is kind of like it's not like Galveston, which seems to be more, Galveston's, at least from what little there is here, is kind of like a corporate stronghold versus Corpus Christi,
Yeah,
which seems like more of a free market area in which the players can sneak in.
yeah. Galveston is a major shipping port, even now. And yeah, by 2020, it's just completely corporate controlled.
Yeah.
Uh,
There is a nomad camp
Texas is
outside.
not friendly to edgerunners.
No, no, not really friendly to nomads either, but they are there. So there is a nomad camp outside of Corpus Christi, and this is where you're actually going to meet Satchel in person, and she is going to basically do kind of a bit of a data dump to the players on what are their next steps and how to achieve those next steps. And basically, it turns into a decision on how the players are going to get to the next chapter, which is Night City, in the final chapter. Whether they're going to go across the mountains or head south and go through the desert, right? Those are the two options. So if they go to the mountains, they're going to head up to Colorado, which seems like they're going. This type of adventure is you're going south, you're going north, you're going south, you're going north, and kind of ping ponging
Zigzag.
you along. Yeah, which is kind of good because as the corporate or the corporation that's trying to get them, which is Norcross, aka Biotechnica, are setting up the most likely routes that the players are going to take, right, to get to Night City. And this bouncing back and disrupting kind of is a good way of figuring it out. But anyways, so now they have a NPC who's going to try to help them and guide them into the right direction and get them on to the next chapter. Depending upon their choices, they have the possibility of encountering the Texas Rangers, who will be a bit of a threat to them. Not as bad as Bayou Slim, but
No, but they're no joke either.
yeah,
Like Texas Rangers are. I mean, they live up to the hype. They're badass,
exactly.
and they're the main force. I mean, their border at this point, their border patrol, their highway patrol. Um, they're really the main law enforcement arm in Texas.
Yeah.
Uh, as a free state, they lean into the myth of the Texas Ranger hard.
Yep. So once the players choose what route they want, they have a choice of how they're going to get that route, whether to hook up with a nomad traveling band, get their own wheels and go on their own, or possibly, take a commercial flight or a commercial booking, which I would not say, I would definitely not do, but it gives you that choice. And Will Moss kind of gives three, four, like five different options that the players could possibly choose, and kind of gives you a bit of a paragraph on each. So again, there's a encounter tables while you're in Corpus Christi that the players could meet. Different events. One actually is a fixer who has possible connection to Eloise, which is the AI from Norcross. And how you can expand on that is up to you. But it's just a quick message, and I wouldn't say a warning, but something that the players should know that they're just one step either ahead of the corporation, or that they are, very close behind. The section also has a random encounter table for the road, for the highway.
I love this random encounter table. Like, this is a good one.
It could be expanded, but yes, for
I mean, it could be, and I did expand it for. I did expand the Nomad random encounter table for Dust in the Wind, my own Nomad source book. But yeah, for something that you're going to find just in the middle of a campaign as an optional thing, this is a good one. I like the different options. They're all pretty varied. Yeah, I like it.
So then you get into the second unit of this chapter, which is Ghost Town. So Will Moss kind of leaves it vague on what town this is, but basically it's one of the abandoned towns that can be placed anywhere along the route as the players are going to town. So what happens in this town is basically Arasaka is setting them up to acquire Adriana, and I love how Will Moss sets this up. So basically, there's a chapter or a section called "Baited." So the setup is, of course, appeal to their hormones with cheesecake. And what this is,
or depending on your players, it could be beefcake. But,
yeah, true, true, very true. I think again, this is back from the '90s, which the majority of tabletop role players were teenage adolescent boys. So any introduction to sexuality, I think, enticed those individuals to possibly seek it. Anyways, so basically it's to kind of, they see a woman in a window, scantily dressed, and one of the players might decide, "Ooh, I'm gonna go check that out."
She's crying, she's upset. It's a honey trap.
Yeah,
like it's a honey trap, and it's very rare that players will not fall for this.
Yeah. But basically, the premise of Ghost Town is for the players to set up camp here, and as a referee, you're trying to capture one or two of the players. by the Arasaka team. What they're attempting to do, and again, this is the next crazy ass solo that the players are going to encounter.
This is my favorite NPC in the book.
Yeah, is that the Arasaka team is going to capture one of the players and try to present a deal, right? A hostage exchange. We won't kill this character if you fork over Adriana. And depending upon what the players do, is up to them. Again, Bayou Slim is going to make an appearance again. And the choice is up to the players on whether they have a deal or no deal. And what are the repercussions for that. So this is a section in which Okano is actually statted out. He is a corp, so he is not somebody who's going to probably be too big of a threat to the players, other than being a talk piece who threatens the players, but not really. Haruko Kanawa She is the solo, and
she is the most perfect corporate ninja presented in any of the books. She is every bit the monster that Bayou Slim is, and much better funded.
yes. And keep in mind, Bayou Slim, if he survived previously, he will be in this encounter too. So
yeah, so you've got two monsters.
Exactly. There is a chance that Bayou Slim has the capability of turning on Arasaka in this situation, because he's looking, because Bayou Slim is been hired by Biotechnica, right? He is there to work with Okano to get her, and Okano kind of like lied to him, saying, yep, you can have her, let's just deal with this party, all I care about is getting some information, right?
Yeah.
And if he gets
Bayou
betrayed,
Slim is a freelancer, and if he gets offended enough or feels like he's going to be betrayed, he'll make decisions based on that.
yep.
Or
So,
it's possible.
and there's the capability of playing off Bayou Slim against Haruko.
Man, where Haruko has 6 10s and nothing under a 7.
Yeah.
Well, when I say she's a monster, she is a monster. Well, okay, her empathy has dropped down to a 6. So there's that. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's going to work in the player's favor in the slightest, but
yep.
Yeah, she's a super badass. Basically, Black Widow without the morality of being an Avenger.
Yep.
She is pure Arasaka corporate asset. She's one of the few NPCs that actually shows up in later books. She shows up in the final battle of Firestorm Stormfront.
Yep. So if you play a Stormfront, she needs to survive, and so does Okano. Okano doesn't necessarily have to survive after this adventure, but Okano does play a role later in Night City. So
it's possible that you can kill either of them and just replace them with other NPCs later.
True.
But as the adventure is written, they're very likely to survive. Mostly because if things really start going bad for them, they will get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yep.
Neither of them are stupid.
Yeah. The next episode, which is Colorado Springs, Will Moss says this is movable. I don't know how, because it technically says Colorado Springs. Or in the Arizona meteor crater. Okay, yeah. So this particular section is basically you're confronted by Luddites an occult of Luddites who are going to try to kind of like capture the team. And because Adriana is a abomination to them, nothing good's gonna happen. So it's just, I think it's
Yeah,
just an encounter to throw some combatants at the players. Not like they just encountered a rough scenario with Bayou Slim and Okano, but it's just to keep the action going, as it were.
I just love that the adventure takes place, in the land of my birth, Colorado Springs,
Yeah.
or Colorado Sprung, as it's known in 2020.
So that's it for this chapter. Expectation is you're possibly going to Denver. Players make it past the Brotherhood. You might get it to Denver. And the next chapter is the conclusion of their adventure, which is going to be heading into Night City. So, oh yeah, so the reason why they would need to go to Denver is because I believe Satchel or someone else gives them a reason that they are going to meet the actual person who hired the team
Them
originally.
originally.
Yeah. And that they're going to meet them in Denver. And it turns out it's actually, so you're going to have to, I think you have to hack into, maybe not. Either the players are going to hack into it or Adriana, but basically they're going to contact Francis Young, who is the father of Adriana. And he is the actual person who has been kind of helping the players along, at least from a financial point of view. And of course, this is where the code that was given to the players originally
Yeah, it's
comes
one of the
into
paper
play.
props.
Yep. So they are basically, the paper prop is going to give them a address to go to within Night
Yeah, the
City.
paper prop is in two sections. The first section is given to the players basically at the start of the game. And then this is where you get the second section, which, gives you the key to solving the puzzle, and it'll identify the contact that the players will need to get a hold of here.
So that's what they find out
Uh,
in Denver. And then it's
yep.
another cross country journey. Some more random tables for the players as they
They
make that
also,
travel.
if they decipher the code, they get to meet or get in contact with the big NPC and the second big NPC in this section, Jenna Swale.
Yes. So technically, there's three. Well, there's two different teams who are after Adriana.
Three.
Three?
Yeah, you were right the third time.
Oh.
Biotechnica, Arasaka, and then at this point, the mysterious corporation that Jenna Swale works for.
Right. Yep. Got it. So the players are head down to Night City. There you are going to go to the rendezvous point, and that is where you encounter Mr. Francis or Mr. Young.
Yeah,
However, he's a bit of a dick
yeah,
because
a little
he,
bit.
he he sells out to Biotechnica, who are going to come in and take Adriana back. However, Okinawa is also going to come in. There is yet another Arasaka. Oh, yeah. So, and this is where it gets really complicated. So you got to keep the various storylines. So Okinawa, he actually is working on
Okano.
Okano. He's working on by himself. So he's looking to get Adriana for himself. There is
Yeah,
a
he's
possibility that the players are going to be able to contact Arasaka themselves, which then you bring in Arasaka's internal affairs to also be another player. And of course, Arasaka, they are also going to want Adriana as well, because Saburo wants immortality, and Adriana
yeah.
is the key to that. So basically, there's a showdown at the rendezvous point between the various factions. If the players survive, and again, it's going to be kind of a bit of a climactic battle with all these different people battling it out. Players should escape. And again, Will Moss presents at the end the different options of what the players could possibly do. It is assumed that they are going to save Adriana, and that is where you're going to meet a benefactor who is going to try to rescue her and get her out of the city and give her the proper life, and also expose this whole situation to the federal government, right? That's because that's the whole
Yeah.
concept around clones is, are they property, are they individuals? And that's kind of like the end in which Adriana is going to kind of be a subject within the political arena on do clones have rights, right? And if
Yes.
so,
And Satchel Sabo is going to take the. She's going to be, broadcasting this whole story of Adriana in efforts to, at this point, gain sympathy for clone rights and whatnot.
and
While Arasaka and Biotechnica just want it for their own ends. Biotechnica obviously looking for all the nefarious ways you can exploit clones, and Arasaka looking more towards the potential for, as Will said, immortality.
yeah, and that's kind of it in wrapping it up. There is no big payout for the players. There's no, especially for the campaign. It is the players are kind of left living on the street again, you know, and they are not. I mean, I did not find anywhere that they were getting, any type of substantial sum of cash for completing this mission. And Adriana, of course, leaves the group. So that crush she had, or that relationship she had with the players, kind of ends as well. Although you can play it up in a future scenario in which she might be hunted again and need the players.
There are some nice twists at the end. The media who has been publicly blasting it is actually kind of, behind the scenes, working in the opposite direction. Off camera, he's working for clone rights. He's just, it's kind of weird, but it makes sense. Yeah, I love this adventure. Like I said when we started the review last episode, I've run it like 3 times now for different groups. It's honestly one of the best campaigns for any game I've ever come across. Especially for one that's this length and covers this much. I mean, sure, there are some D&D campaigns out there that are this epic, but for anything non D&D, this definitely is at the top of my list.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what. Here's a hint. If at least one of your players is playing a nomad, there's not a section where they're not going to be useful. Like they may not personally know anybody there, but the amount of nomads you run into in this campaign, just having somebody there to speak the lingo and understand the culture will be invaluable to the party. It'll give them an in.
Yeah, I think all, maybe corporate is not necessarily,
Yeah, I don't. That's always going to be the problem with corporates, though. If they've got their own resources to call on, uh, it's going to act like a shortcut to a lot of things, unless you just cut off those resources. At which point, you're basically like hobbling them as a character role.
whoa.
Yeah, that was loud. Sorry about that.
Got some
Traffic outside.
drag racing going on outside.
Something. Yeah, cops. Again, like there might be certain situations where you could like finagle cops into it, but I don't know. They might be a little more difficult to work into the campaign, at least as written in the 2020 with the way authority works. But any of the other classes should be just fine. Netrunners, medtechs, rocker boys, even nomads, solos, techies. They're all gonna work just fine.
Yeah.
Medias will love this shit. And I could see, like I said, corporate and cops, you may have to cut their legs out from underneath them a little bit, but I think the end result from either of them would probably be beneficial as well.
Yep.
Like you said, there's no great big payout at the end. It's one of those experience is the reward.
Yeah, and this being the second scenario book we've covered, the one thing that I think has been not covered in either of the books is a reputation reward, right? So something like this, I would boost their reputation just because maybe 2 or 3 points, just because of the amount
Media
of
coverage alone would bump it up
true.
that high.
I mean, their names are not or have been changed to protect the innocent, but on the street, it should definitely boost their reputation quite a bit. And that was the one thing that I've noticed on a lot of these scenario books is even though the core book has that reputation, it doesn't necessarily give you rules.
Used.
Yeah, A, it's never used, and B, there's no real guidelines on how it gets improved, right? So it's often, if people are there, you boost the reputation. If there's a section of the city that knows about what happened, then their reputation is that big. And something like this big adventure and the amount of news that's going to be around it, the player's reputation should definitely go beyond a 5, if not more.
I mean, it was this adventure that actually, like, it's funny that you mentioned that because it was this adventure that made me like start really taking a look at how I was personally going to implement rules for reputation.
Yeah.
And like it made me break it up. At this point, it made me break it up into two different sections. You have you have uh, local uh, you have personal reputation, which is basically just local, how local people feel about you, and eventually, like if you're high enough, that becomes on a national level. And there's professional reputation, which is how the people in your chosen field know about you, because you may not want a high personal reputation. You may want to, especially if you're like a solo or something, you want to keep your activities on the down low. You don't want people knowing that you're a professional hitman. But in the professional aspect, yeah, you want people to know who you are in that regard.
Yeah.
And it would go both ways. There, you could have a positive reputation or a negative reputation. And I started working with that, and eventually it ended up with the system that as it exists with Interlock Unlimited. But this is where I first started thinking about that. Because, like you said, reputation is just so absolutely unutilized and not expanded upon at all in any of the supplements. I don't think they even started looking at reputation until V3.
True. Yeah. I mean, even with Red, there's still in some of those adventures, there's not this. And again, is it a skill? Do you improve it with improvement points? Which is not how it should work. It should be based off of how the referee decides whether or not
100%.
you improved. And again, yeah. So like I never really gave reputational awards to players because again that whole shadow aspect. Only the people involved know what really happened, and whether or not that is actually broadcast is different. And whether the players really want their reputation being well known is another problem. Which I think that mindset of how you think in the real world a criminal would act versus a cyberpunk who, if you think about today with the notoriety of YouTubers and creators and TikTokers, and they want that reputation out there, even if it is bad, and because of the little bit of lawlessness that the cyberpunk world has, they might not care, especially if you're looking at Solo of Fortune, right? So Solo of Fortune, you have, hey, these guys are killers. These guys are beyond, are basically murdering people and stealing and violating various international laws, yet they have this notoriety about them.
Yeah, the idea of a professional hitman being a rock star to the general public just blows my mind. Like, how could you ever be effective?
Yeah.
Like, everywhere you go, especially in the profession, people are going to know your face. They're going to know your name. They're going to know your what you're about. Like, Morgan Blackhand can't walk into any situation with the way he's treated in the books. Like, he gets off the plane and everybody in the state knows where he is. Like, oh my God. Like,
well, I don't. Yeah, so that's the kind of
reminds me of
concept.
Saints Row 3.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of concept of not understanding how the world works when it comes to those type of criminals. Like for me, Morgan Blackhand, he's going to be off the radar. If you do encounter him.
Like, for him to be as effective as he claims to be, nobody's going to know about him outside of solos, fixers, and corporates.
Yeah. So.
And that's the only way he could possibly operate at the level he does.
Yeah.
The idea that, I think they were looking at it like everybody knows who John Gotti is and all this stuff. Well, they know who he is because he got caught. They treat him like a rock star now, but that's because he got caught. He wasn't as good as all that.
Well, if you think about it, right? So in today's age, with the law enforcement that's here, the criminals, right? How much can you prove? I mean, look at certain people today who are getting indicted and not having still
Any
being able
real
to
repercussions?
avoid the repercussions, right? Even though it's there in the media showing the various crimes.
Yeah,
But
even
anyways, so you have that concept at least that you can draw upon in real world. But normal people, the non ranking members of society, still they would suffer more. However, if you think about so because of the collapse and how America is run and how the world has changed, I mean, if you think about the 1920s and the 1930s with the Bonnie and Clydes, the
yeah, the
Derringer,
babyface Nelsons and
all of
John
these,
Dillingers.
yeah, and all these criminals who were getting the publicity, but yet not being able to be apprehended. And of course, the surveillance of that age, yeah, they could hide easily versus our
Yeah,
concept of the current world. There's no way someone can hide, right? Or you have to go completely off the grid to hide
yeah. I
for the
mean,
crimes that you're committing.
and yeah, I see where it's coming from because in the late '80s, early '90s, you had movies like Legend of Billie Jean and what's Natural Born Killers, where it was showing these outlaws in the modern age as media stars.
Yeah,
Um, I just I like I don't see how you could ever have that high of a public reputation and ever be an effective edge runner.
yeah.
I just that's why I created it the way I did, where you've got your public reputation and your professional reputation.
Yep.
That's
So I know we're getting close to time. So my closing thoughts on Land of the Free. Definitely well worth the money. It is a campaign that you will need to have experienced players as well as experienced characters to play through this. But it is also a great scenario to help a referee take their games to the next level. Just because of how Will Moss planned out everything and also tried to cover as many different decision trees that the plot could go down. Which
yeah.
I don't think I've seen too many scenarios, whether Cyberpunk or any other campaign books, that took it to that type of level. Again, God bless Will Moss. He's a madman, in my opinion, for writing the options and the different ways in which the scenario can go and actually cover very briefly, but giving enough information for the referee to work upon. So
I would honestly say that even if you don't plan to run this as the campaign it is, you will learn as much about GMing from the way he lays this book out and the NPCs he creates for it and the detailed backstories he gives them. You will learn as much about GMing from this as you will from Listen Up, You Primitive Screwheads.
yeah, or even
Um,
planning out a major
Plotting out a campaign.
campaign. Yeah,
Yeah, plotting out, like you said, different decisions and how to approach that. Uh, this is a masterclass in how to tell and in how to write an adventure and how to run characters through a campaign.
yep,
Uh, it's not, like I said, even if you don't use it as the campaign, it's worth it just for that. Um, if you run Cyberpunk, the map of North America is worth it. Um, if you can get a hold of the original box set, the map itself is this giant poster-sized thing.
Well,
I love this book. I love everything about it. The art is fantastic all the way through. It's consistent all the way through, even with the various artists. It works well with each other. There's no, you're not looking at like one beautiful image next to like, what the fuck is that?
yeah. And an FYI, if you do get the PDF, it does have the full map, but it is a PDF of the map, so it prints out every single section of the map as a page. So it's
Yeah.
you have to glue them, tape them, do whatever you need to do to make the big map. It would have been nice if they
Or
also included a JPEG that you could take to a printer
um,
and print it out.
which you can get from Datafortress2020. I don't know the legality of it, but I do have the map as a JPEG image and as a printable PDF,
Well, maybe you should reach
just
out
by itself.
Jay Gray and say, "Hey, you guys want this for the PDF on drive-through?"
I mean, I took down my PDF and large JPEG of the Night City map when they re-released it. So if
That
they release a map by itself for this, I'll probably just take it off the site.
well, like I said, reach out to Jay Gray and say, "Hey, you guys want this?" And
Yeah.
I mean, looking at what they have, right, which is a PDF, it seems like they scanned in each section of the map and created a PDF.
Yeah, that's what they
based on
did.
that.
They just scanned
Versus like the Night City map that you get from drive-through is a full scale map of a JPEG or a PNG.
it. I
So
mean, the map that they give in the PDF is a single image of the map itself. It's just, and I guess you could blow it up to whatever size you wanted,
yeah,
so it's not bad.
yeah.
The secondary part
Go ahead.
is a separate image, like the backside of the map.
Yeah.
Um,
So before we close out, I know we're talking about maps. There is a content creator out there who did a live play of the Land of the Free campaign. The channel is called Darling Creepshow, and she has, I forget the GM's name, but it is a live play of this campaign. It is a interesting watch and a bit confusing, but overall entertaining, I would say. And it's nice, and it's a recent live play. I think they pushed this out this year and went through the campaign. I think there's like 10 episodes of the campaign, which is nice to see that this campaign someone actually played it and broadcast it. So check it out, Darling Creepshow.
Absolutely.
Any other last thoughts before we wrap up?
I think that's about all my thoughts on this book. I think we covered everything that needed to be covered, and I think we did it well. I can't praise Land of the Free high enough.
Mm.
My only complaint is that this cover and the cover for Home of the Brave were never officially like merged and sold as a poster. That's my only complaint.
Yes, the artwork and definitely should be printable. But, you know, does Artel Serene have to get permission from the mysterious man that we can never find?
Tug Anderson, where are you?
Well,
Oh, he's out there somewhere.
I hope so.
Someone's got information.
Right. So Dave told us last time that he did work for NASA. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a clue.
Which, yeah, and given his work on the covers of Deep Space and Near Orbit, that's not surprising.
So anyone who has NASA contacts,
Get a hold of us.
try to hack into the HR system and find Doug's profile.
Yeah, we also need to find Michael McDonald. Like, we're also looking for him.
Didn't we talk? No. Oh, we talked to Mike
No, we
Jackson.
haven't talked. We talked to Mike Jackson.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Michael McDonald, Michael Jackson. You understand how.
They're all mics. These are the mics I know.
Well,
I know. These are the
they're both
mics I know.
very famous singers as well. Anyways, I guess that's it. So we a little bit over. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, definitely check out Land of the Free. I don't believe it's sold as the physical copies. You definitely can get the PDFs from DriveThruRPG. So check it out. I am Cybersmily. You can check out my stuff on cybersmily.net, which I have tons of tools for Cyberpunk 2020 as well as Cyberpunk Red. Haven't done any updates at all in quite a while. I need to get off my butt. Problem is I'm playing too many games, tabletop games. So I'm a player in two campaigns. I'm running two campaigns, and I play war games as well. So, and I do this podcast. So my free time, I'm like, God, I'm too busy to do anything
You're a
lately.
bit stretched thin there, pal. Plus, you
Yeah,
got to work,
yeah, and then real life. So there's
sleep,
that.
spend time with the missus.
Yeah. So, right. So cybersmiling.net. I also have my own Discord. I'm also on Cybernation's Uncensored Discord, plus a tons of other Discords. It's funny because someone was mentioning my site and in another Discord, and I popped in and they're like, "Oh, it's him." I'm like, "Yeah, I lurk." I don't read all the Discords, but sometimes I pop in and see my name and I will reply. So, good chance if you do an @cybersmiley on any of these Cyberpunk Discords, you're probably hitting me. Also, I'm kind of lurking on Reddit. I'm not sure how well that's going to go when Reddit goes public and how Reddit's going to change once it goes public. That's going to be an interesting thing. I'm not on X. I am not on Facebook. I am not on any of those other social medias, I'm afraid.
I am Wisdom000. My real name is Derek Bernier. I run Datafortress2020.com. If you're looking for source books, rules, really any supplemental Cyberpunk 2020 material, adventures, you can find it on my site. It's the largest, most comprehensive site for Cyberpunk 2020 out there. I am on Facebook at both the Data Fortress 2020 and the Cyberpunk 2020 Facebook groups. I am on Reddit under the handle Data Fortress 2020. I am on what is this? Discord under Wisdom. I'm like Will. I'm not on Twitter, X, or whatever the hell he wants to call it these days, or any of the other social media stuff. It just all gets too confusing for me. But by all means, reach out to either or both of us through any of those venues. We love hearing from you. We love hearing your comments, questions, criticism, complaints, suggestions about really anything. We just love hearing from anybody out there, and we love talking cyberpunk. So, yeah, by all means, hit us up. We will. When's our next episode? The
2 weeks from now, the
17th.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll have a guest yet for that. If not, we'll go into our next review, which will be Will Moss's other epic campaign, the one where we get our name, Tales from the Forlorn Hope. You never know; it may be both at the same time. We may have a guest for that. We may not. But either way, please join us in 2 weeks, and everybody have a good night. We'd like to say thank you to Rob Mulligan and Cybernation Uncensored for hosting us. You'll be able to find all our past episodes on Cybernation Uncensored's YouTube channel under the Tales from the Forlorn Dopes playlist. And yeah, everybody have a good night.
Yep. Ta-ta for now.
Cybernation